This is a point of argument as far as what your plate should look like and how you should portion your various components of your meal out. The way I look at it is you should consume mostly starch. And starch is things you like beans and corn and rice and potatoes and sweet potatoes and bread and pasta. These are starches. That should be the bulk of your meal plan. And because I'm so focused on starch, I realize I named my most popular book, The Starch Solution. And when I proposed that as a title, the publisher thought that was suicide to put the title starch on the front of a book. But I said, that's what it's all about, starch. Well, because of my emphasis on how much starch you should eat, I say 90%. Why did I say 90%? Well, because that's what traditional populations of people would consume. Is they were lucky if they got enough food, first of all, among the Mayans and the Aztecs, among the people of ancient times. They were lucky if they got enough food, and they were just happy to get enough starch. But anyway, I know, for example, based upon good dietary histories, that before 1980, over 90% of the food in China came from rice. So I always tell people 90%. But in practicality, as people around me, and particularly my wife, Mary, say, is that when she looks at my plate, it doesn't look like 90% starch. It looks like I have a lot more green and yellow vegetables. Well, based upon the calories consumed, I bet it's 90%. But based on the size of the portions on the plate, it probably comes out to 50% or 70% or whatever. All I want you to do is I want you to get in enough starch. It's inexpensive. You like it. Gives you the energy you need. Gives you plenty of calories. Gives you lots of nutrients to do everything you want. Win a race, have a baby, etc. That starch is key. And it's particularly important in these days when there have been such an anti-starch movement. They're called low-carb diets. Low-carb diets are very popular because you lose weight and people are familiar with eating meat. So it's not so much of a transition for them at all. And plus, they've been so indoctrinated with the idea that starches make you fat that they've become unreasonably popular, dangerously popular, these low-carb diets. So probably some of that emphasis that I put is in opposition to a low-carb diet. I want you to eat enough starch. In practicality, look at your plate, maybe 50, 70, 80, 90% of the food you'll see on your plate comes from the starch category. But we got to make a radical change in your diet. In addition to what I would tell you about changing the proportions of food, change the quantity. You can't eat the same size portions of food you used to eat. You got to eat more. Yeah, you have to eat more. Our food is so low in calories. It has half, sometimes a third as many calories as what you were eating. So unless you eat enough food, you're not going to be satisfied. So take the brakes off, take the limits off that appetite of yours and let it go to town. Really enjoy the food, enjoy the starch. Just make sure it's starch and not mixed up with oil in the form of French fries and potato chips and butter on your potatoes. It's got to be the basic starches.